Ever found yourself spiraling down a late night rabbit hole of what am I meant to do and why haven't I found it yet? And let's be honest, who hasn't? Then you're in the right place. I'm Theresa White, career clarity expert and 5-time certified career coach, and I'm here to help you navigate the question of how to find a career that truly lights you up. On Career Clarity Unlocked, we're all about those light bulb moments. I'm talking to people who are still trying to figure out what they're meant to do, coaching them live to reach that magical, yes, this is it moment. And we'll also hear from those who've already found their dream careers and figure out exactly how they did it. Whether you're looking for inspiration or actionable advice on finding a career you love, I've got you covered. Time to unlock some career clarity. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Career Clarity Unlocked. Today is going to be a fun one. Countless people have been asking me to share more of my story. So that is what this episode is going to be about. And we're going to have a lot of fun together. So grab a coffee, settle in, and picture me, age 21, in a random office in a warehouse in Cork in Ireland, working at a company called Media Satellite. Which sounds kind of cool, right? Except to this day, I still have absolutely no clue what they actually did. Really, like zero. I think my task was some data entry, answering the phones, but I mean, when you put this together, the Irish accent with a technical jargon, I didn't understand one single word. I've took dozens of calls a day, and they all sounded something like flark, flark, signal, something, something, dot, satellite, blob to me. So I developed a strategy, which was just forward the call to someone, billing, tech support, maybe Dave from accounting. And somehow the strategy worked. I have no idea how, but the company actually thought I was amazing. And this internship turned into a paid job, which is a total miracle to me to this day, because I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. I didn't even know what the company was doing or what they were selling or what I was supposed to do. So the point is, sometimes you can be totally lost, totally clueless, and still things are going to work out. And that's just one of the stories from my years abroad. I've actually lived, worked, and studied in 4 different countries: Germany, Ireland, Australia, and now Hawaii. Each place taught me something about belonging, about being lost, and about eventually finding my place. So if you've ever looked at your career and thought, I should be happier, yes, I'm successful, but something feels off, this episode is going to be for you. Because I've been there, lost for years and years. Yes, doing fine on paper, but not feeling at home in my career or myself. And this story today isn't about practical tips, but it is about possibilities, about humor, and the truth that belonging does come, even if it takes a while. So inside this episode, I'm going to be sharing funny stories, everything from bartender fails to clueless jobs to getting fired on day 2 of a job. But I'm also going to be really honest and vulnerable with you about feeling lonely and feeling stuck in many different places. And I'm going to be sharing how the messy path eventually led me to belonging in life, in love, and in my career. So we're going to be starting in Germany, where it all began. What really shaped me, my growing up in Germany, were the horses. Horseback riding was my big passion. Starting at age 14, I first had my own horse, and that felt, for the first time in my life, like true belonging. And it wasn't just my horse. Her name was Nellie, and she was the most amazing being on planet Earth. But it was more than just the horse. It was also the people and the community that I met there that felt like home in a way that I hadn't experienced before. But to just burst the bubble here, when I tell people that I had a horse, oftentimes they imagine wealth and privilege and a polished stable, and that could not be further from the truth. So every day after school, I got on a 40-minute bus ride to the small village where the horse stable was. And it was a very basic setup, definitely no luxury, no services. And at age 14, I had this huge responsibility of exercising my horse every day, no matter if it was raining or snowing or crazy hot summers, it didn't matter. My horse had to be exercised. And then there were no services. So we had organized a rotation within the community for mucking out stables, feeding, caretaking. And that hard work is what really built that community. And everyone had to pull their weight. So that gave us a real sense of teamwork and bonding. And you don't get that often. And it really comes from hours of hard physical labor where you can't make any excuses or take any shortcuts. It's cleaning, caretaking, showing up in all conditions, no matter how hot or cold or wet the weather was. And that community centered around my horse, Nellie, is what was my anchor in life at that point, and a big reason why I never wanted to leave Germany. While I was in school and taking care of my horse, I had various part-time jobs to afford that. And throughout that whole time, I had absolutely no clue what I wanted to be when I grow up. Yes, I had that sense of belonging in the community, but I had no direction in my life or in my career. I was young. One beautiful thing that the horse stable community exposed me to was to do creative work. My best friend, her husband, worked with stucco, which was hands-on, artistic, fun, creative, and I loved it. And that sparked something in me of like, I want to do something, pursue art, to do something creative. But there was also the very real reality that I wasn't very good at drawing or art. And so that door felt closed. And that belief that many of us have of, I don't have the right skills to do what I really would love to do, became one of the internalized beliefs I carried with me. And I wonder how often you believe that you might lack the skills to do something that you actually would love to do. I definitely felt that way. So this chapter in Germany, where I lived up to age 21, left me with feeling a sense of belonging in this community, but also a big professional uncertainty. And I think most of us experienced that at age 21. So this was the starting point. And the starting point gives you the idea that I never thought I'm going to leave Germany. I thought I'm going to be staying, that my life would revolve around the village where my horse was for the rest of my life. But things took a pretty big dramatic shift, as you're going to hear in this next part of my life. The next part of my life took me to Ireland. So, as I shared, leaving Germany and the community that gave me that sense of belonging was really hard, and I didn't want to leave. But if you live in Germany, if you grow up in Germany, it is mandatory to speak fluent English. It's a must for any good job. And employers expect experience in an English-speaking country. So I knew that is something I had to do. And I decided, okay, to check this off the box on my resume, I'm going to do this program. There's a language school and an internship I can do in Ireland. That sounded like a good plan. And I decided, yes, I can leave for a short amount of time and move to Ireland for this language school and the internship. Once I arrived in Ireland, which was actually also a crazy story because flights were so cheap back then in Europe. I think the flight was like 10 euros. And it was also a pretty shitty flight because we then had an emergency landing somewhere else in north of Germany and were delayed for hours. I think we were sitting on this plane for 10 hours because it was a cheap airline. There was no food or drinks or anything. You were just sitting there before we then took off to Dublin. And then we flew into Dublin instead of Cork. So then I had to take a bus from Dublin to Cork. I got to Cork after midnight, got dropped off at a random street and had absolutely no clue where I was. I didn't speak perfect English and had to find this agency that I was hoping was still open so they could bring me to the place I was staying. somehow, like a miracle, that worked out. And there was someone who then directed me where I had to go. And I actually found the shared apartment that I was staying in that night. It sounds pretty crazy now that I look back at it, but somehow that worked out that night. I started the language school. And then, as I shared already earlier, I didn't stay at that language school for very long because my internship, the company Media Satellite, they're like, can you start earlier? We really, really need someone. And as I said, I had absolutely no clue whatsoever what this company was doing. It could have been satellite TV, something with satellites, because satellites were in the name and there were big satellites in there. But what these satellites were doing, I have absolutely no clue to this day. So, when you grow up in Germany, you learn decent English in school, but it is still different than speaking English in an English speaking country. And then you add the Irish accent, and that literally left me with understanding absolutely zero. And I didn't even understand questions people were asking me when they were calling in. I didn't understand if I was supposed to sell them something or provide customer service or help them find who to talk to. And they gave me the website to look at. It was the worst website that you've probably ever seen. And I don't think anyone else there knew what they were doing or what the company was doing. So all I did was just randomly forward calls, like sometimes to billing, sometimes to tech, sometimes to sales. I didn't even know who was who, but forwarding the call seemed like a good strategy that worked. And then sometimes I would just read something off the website if I thought the customer might be asking about the company or a product or a satellite. So the surprising thing was that everyone seemed fine with me doing that. And somehow the company loved me and wanted me to stay and extend my internship. And it was supposed to be an unpaid internship, but they liked me so much that they started paying me. And to this day, I literally had no idea what I was doing there. So imagine getting promoted at a company when you don't even understand the words your customers are saying. That was literally me. But my time in Ireland was amazing. I loved it. It was the first time I really stepped outside my bubble, and it proved that I could belong somewhere else, even when I was completely clueless. It also showed me that you really don't have to have it all figured out to be valued at a company. And that was my first taste of life beyond Germany. It was super fun, super messy, and it definitely opened my world. Now we're moving on to the next chapter in my life, which took me to Australia. So while still in Ireland, I was living with a couple of different roommates who went to the same language school and also did internships there. And one of the girls I lived with, she was from Czech Republic. And we got along really well. And we decided, why not go and study abroad together? And we somehow were actually able to make it work that we both found a university in Sydney in Australia that had an exchange program with our respective universities back home. And a year later, at age 22, me and her actually moved to Sydney, Australia to study there for 2 semesters. So that was super exciting, moving to a big city, this huge adventure. It was amazing. I was just, once I had burst out of my little bubble in Germany, I was ready to explore the world, and I couldn't have been more excited than moving to Australia. I loved going to the University of Sydney. It was just beautiful. I loved being in the city. That was my first experience of living in a big city. And then there's Bondi Beach and, the Opera House, and it's just amazing and beautiful. And there's so much life. Once I had settled in at school there and we found a house where we moved in with a couple of other students, I was ready to find a job to support myself while living there. And I loved going out. So I was like, working at a bar, that'd be so fun. I could be part of that nightlife scene that is just fabulous in Sydney. I did that, but only for a few days until I paid out $800 to the wrong person on the second day of my new job. So, yes, I secured a job as a bartender at a club and casino. And my 22-year-old self was stoked to have gotten this awesome job. I've never worked at a club before, definitely not at a casino. It was like a big one in the nightclub scene. So I was just so excited. Day one, I learned how to make drinks and handle a busy bar, as well as the gambling machines. Slightly overwhelming. I had about 20 minutes of training, which included all the instructions for paying out on gambling machines, which are legal in Australia, or at least they were back then, which wasn't quite as straightforward as you would think. It was something like you press these 2 buttons, you turn the key, you press these 3 buttons, you turn another key, then you got to write everything down, pay out the customers. So I got a whole 20 minutes of training, and then they were like, you got this, right? You'll be by yourself for the rest of the night. I'm like, sure, I think I've got this. It was a slow night, so somehow I survived that night. Come back to work the next day on a Saturday. The club was packed, and I'm in charge of the gambling machines. So I was partnered with a bartender at a bar. He was doing the drinks. I was supposed to do the gambling machines. At some point, I had to run to the bathroom. I got back from the bathroom, and the bartender tells me, like, hey, there's a payout of $800 on machine number 16. So I get the money out of the register and head over to machine 16. A woman is sitting at that machine. I ask her, would you like the payout? And she's like, yep. I give her the $800, do that button, button, key thing. She takes the $800 and leaves. A few seconds later, another woman shows up at the bar and says, hey, why am I still waiting for my payout for machine 16? Turns out I gave the money to the wrong person, because the woman who won that money played multiple machines, which is what a lot of people do, I guess. And while she was waiting for a payout, she was playing another machine. By the time I realized the money went to the wrong person, that first woman had long disappeared with the money. So the manager gets involved and pays out $800 to the correct customer. Then the manager pulls me in the office and let me know that this was my mistake, and I now have to pay back the $800. There was no convincing her that it was actually the customer's fault for leaving the machine and having someone else sit there. But my 22-year-old self was just in shock and scared. I am an international student in a foreign country, and all of a sudden I now owe $800. So that was a pretty big shock to deal with. But the beautiful thing was that my coworkers turned out to be really amazing human beings. And they were the ones who supported me, even though we've only known each other for 2 days. They were telling me, do not pay the money back. They were ensuring me that what the manager asked me for is illegal and that it wasn't my fault. So instead of working for, I don't know how long I would have had to work back the $800, I just walked in the next day and quit my job. A few days later, I found a new job at a fabulous pub with a really great management team and thankfully no gambling machines. But that also started with a funny story. So they had me work on the restaurant side. That was like the first or second week I was working there. And I remember that I was still fairly new to being in English-speaking countries. Yes, you learn decent English at school. And then I had that experience in Ireland where I understood zero about anything. This English is the Irish accent. So I was still not quite fluent. And I had a customer come up to a counter and she ordered something that to me must have sounded like wine. So I spent about 5 minutes looking through all the wine bottles for the word that I thought I heard her say, till the customer finally interrupts and is like, excuse me, I ordered food, not wine. So that was pretty embarrassing. And I was literally that lost that I was trying to find a glass of maybe Merlot when this person actually had ordered a meat pie. So those were my fun and also quite embarrassing stories of working in Australia. Outside of the work there, I had a great time. But the friendship with my Czech roommate had drifted apart and we weren't as connected anymore. And it was kind of hard for me to find my place socially there. I had a lot of fun. I had people to go out with, parties, city life, and adventures, but there was no one I had like a deeper connection with. So that left me feeling somewhat lonely for that year, which wasn't a bad experience, but it didn't make it feel like home. I didn't feel like I quite belonged there or it had roots there. And obviously, career wise, I was still totally lost. I mean, I had fun studying philosophy, which was cool. I took a class at the University of Sydney on philosophy of quantum physics, which somehow I passed that class. Don't ask me how. I was still really lost, had no direction. But it was a fun chapter. It was humbling. And it showed me that not every adventure leads to a place where you truly belong. Now, living in Sydney, I knew I was not going to go back to Germany. Once I was outside of that bubble and experienced what it means to live in different places, I knew there was no way I'm going to go back. And definitely not to a country that has 4 seasons and winters. So then I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to get a job with a degree in philosophy, and I want to move somewhere else. And the good thing was that in Germany, you don't pay for your education like you do in the United States. So far, I'm not coming out of this with any student debt, as so many people in the US do, which gives you a lot more freedom. At this point, I haven't spent any money. I've always been able to support myself through part-time jobs. So I had more means to keep exploring and keep going. So I was like, okay, I need to get a different degree because I'm not going to get a job with philosophy. I don't even have one clue what I would possibly want to do. And I want to move somewhere else. And then I saw came across about a university in Hawaii. And I was like, wait, there's a university in Hawaii? What could you study in Hawaii? So I looked them up. I was like, oh, they have a master's degree in global leadership and sustainable development. That is really cool. I love sustainability. I applied, got in on an international student scholarship, and somehow it was meant to be that my next move brought me to Hawaii. I studied sustainability, thought this is going to be the field I'm going to work in. So many people graduating from grad school or from college, you have no idea how to actually find a job. I sent out hundreds and hundreds of applications, no luck in landing a dream job, which is even harder when you're on an OPT visa. So that was a pretty rough reality check. I was set on staying in Hawaii. I had fallen in love with this place. The people and the place really made me feel like I belong here. And so in the end, I just had to find a job to pay my bills and pay my rent. And that ended up being a management training program at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Definitely not what you think you would go after studying sustainability, but that's just what happened. I actually ended up spending 8 years there, moving from management training into management, then into HR and into recruiting. On paper, my career looked actually successful. It was a well-known company, a good one to have on your resume. I got promoted over and over. I had a really good salary. I was driving a company car. So I was checking most of the boxes that you would call success. But that entire time, I did not like working there. It was definitely not the place I belonged in. I didn't fit in with the culture. I didn't like the work I was doing. I was unhappy, unfulfilled, and I still had absolutely no clue what I wanted to do when I grew up. Just the problem was that I was grown up at that point, and everyone expects you that you should have figured it out by now. So my career I was doing what made sense, but it felt really unfulfilling, purposeless, and nah, on a good day. So while in Hawaii, I had really found a place that felt like home. I didn't find that in my career just yet. And now looking back on this, I really see that there are so many different layers to belonging. One is the place of feeling rooted somewhere, and Hawaii was definitely that place for me. Then comes relationships, friendships, marriage, kids, community. And I also did find that in Hawaii. But not till much later did I find belonging in my career. And not till most recently did I actually find belonging in myself. So going back to my fully being lost in my career and what I was possibly meant to do, I knew I had potential. I was always good at everything I did. I just hadn't found the thing I actually wanted to do and wanted to be good at. And there was always this question that I was carrying around with me. It was like, what am I meant to do? I know I could do more than this, but what? And who would ever give me the chance to actually do it? And there seemed to be no actionable guidance. Yes, there were journaling prompts, there were career assessments, but nothing really gave me an answer. And I got obsessed with that question. I was like, there has to be a way to figure this out. And this took me on a year-long journey where I really took every single assessment I could find, Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, you name it, any assessment out there. I read every book I could get my hands on about careers, about purpose, about fulfillment. I got multiple certifications in career development. I got multiple certifications in career development and career coaching. I studied career theories, models, coaching frameworks. And each of these parts, each of these steps gave me some puzzle pieces, but not the full picture. And I was lacking how to put the pieces together. And I was so fueled by curiosity, but also at some level by desperation that I had to solve this question. One of the most important puzzle pieces that I ended up finding was taking the Sparketype assessment developed by Jonathan Fields. That came later in my journey. And the moment I got my results after taking the assessment and I read the description of being a scientist, it was like, oh my God, this is me. And now my entire life and career suddenly makes sense. Everything clicked. The scientist is someone who loves to figure things out, loves the burning questions and finding answers to these really hard questions. So of course I became obsessed with figuring out what I meant to do, because my wiring is to chase riddles until I find the answer. So the obsession was actually part of my wiring. And I wonder how many of you are at this exact place right now where you are successful in your careers, at least on the outside. But inside, there is that question of, is this really all there is? What am I meant to do? And where can I step into my full potential? But then at the same time, life is happening and we just can't start over and throw it all away and become a traveling artist. It's not happening. We have bills to pay. Some of us have families. We have obligations. But we still crave belonging and finding our way in our careers. And as I was getting deeper and deeper into this obsession with finding the answer to the question of what I am meant to do, and also how do we answer this question for other people, it really brought me to the place that I was meant to go to. And this really helped me find my calling, which is helping others find their path. So all of those years where I was lost professionally, Germany, Ireland, Australia, Hawaii, actually weren't wasted. Not even my many years in a job that just wasn't good, wasn't wasted. All of those chapters gave me different perspectives, built my resilience, gave me a lot of fun stories to tell, built a lot of compassion, and taught me that belonging isn't just about one place or one person, but has these different layers of where you are, who you surround yourself with, and what you do. And finally finding work that makes me come alive and that feels like home was one of the most important pieces to feel like I have found my place. And that is where my professional belonging really clicked. And because scientists just love living in the questions, of course, I didn't stop there and started diving deeper and deeper. And that brought me to a lot of personal internal work. So my biggest personality shift actually came after my professional shift, not till my late 30s or when I turned 40, after years of therapy, falling in love with internal family systems work, and discovering who I really am on a much deeper level, beyond where I live, who I spend my time with, what I do professionally, but also who I am. I would love to hear from you if parts of my journey resonated with you. And also let me know if you actually think that I have a sense of humor, because this is the one thing I haven't shared yet, that I'm actually really funny, but German humor doesn't translate to the US. And it doesn't do that the other way around. Like Germans, we don't get American humor. We just don't. And whenever I tell a funny story to someone in the US, they look at me all serious. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to laugh here. This was to be funny. So I'm curious. Let me know. Did any of this make you laugh, or were you just sitting there completely serious? No, I really hope that you got my jokes. I'm trying to learn American humor. So any tips, send them my way. So yes, this was my journey. It was funny, it was twisty and turny and ups and downs and great places and dark places. And it was a journey, and it still is. I don't think I have fully arrived yet, and I don't think we ever will. And I think there will always be another layer to discover. But it's beautiful to look back on the many, many years in my life where I didn't know where I belonged geographically, personally, professionally. And you might feel like that in your career or in your life right now. And I hope that my journey inspires you to believe that your belonging does come. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes there are some really funny detours, and sometimes it's after many years of feeling lost. But I truly believe it comes. If you are seeking it, it will come. And this journey has created the passion in me that fuels me every day, which is on the one hand, helping people find the work they are meant to do, and also building community. I'm so passionate about building the supportive, judgment-free space where you are accepted exactly as you are, because that to me is the foundation to feel safe in dreaming big, being encouraged, knowing that you belong. Because we can do hard things if we have that secure place to operate from, and that support that allows us to dream big and then make it happen. And that's why I don't just coach individuals through career clarity and career change. Yes, I do that. But I also created the Career Bloom community, a space where women support women as they are navigating this journey we call life and looking and finding the places they belong. And it's so beautiful to witness this community cheering each other on, sharing wins, holding each other through struggles, helping each other stay accountable and reaching their goals. Career Bloom has started and still is about career clarity, personal branding, job search, career change, but it is also about belonging, possibility, and transforming together. So if you are feeling lost in your chapter right now, maybe you're in my media satellite season, feeling like a fraud and hoping no one figures it out that you have no idea what you're doing. Or maybe you're in my Australia chapter. Everything looks fun, but something is missing. It's not it yet. Or maybe you're deep in the enterprise rent-a-car years where you check all the boxes, but you feel emptier with every promotion. Every single one of those chapters brings lessons, even the ones that feel messy or incomplete. But I truly believe that your Hawaii is out there. That place, literal or metaphorical, where you feel rooted, seen, energized, and aligned, where your life, your work, your people all start to make sense, where you can finally say, yes, this is where I belong. And if you're ever worried about not knowing what you're doing, just remember that I literally had a job where I didn't understand a single word I said on the phone, and they still paid me. Now, if that's not proof that you don't have to have it all figured out to move forward. If this episode resonated and you're ready to stop guessing and start knowing what you're meant to do, I'd love to talk to you. Book a free call with me. I'm here to listen to your story, figure out where exactly you're stuck, what you're craving, and how I can help you put those puzzle pieces together and help you gain clarity on what your next step should be. You can book a call with me, and the link for that is right down here in the show notes. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It is such an honor to spend this time with you. And if it gave you something to think about or just made you feel a little less alone, please share this episode with a friend. Send it to someone who's also in there, what am I doing with my life era? And next week, I'm going to have an incredible guest on this show. And yes, she is a YouTube superstar. You will not want to miss this conversation. So make sure that you're giving this show a follow, leave a quick rating or review if you're feeling generous. And please know that you don't have to settle. Your career should light you up, not wear you down. Please keep chasing what makes you come alive. I'll see you next week back here on Career Clarity Unlocked. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Career Clarity Unlocked. If you're feeling stuck in that what's next spiral and are ready to finally break free, let's chat. You can book your free Career Clarity call where we'll uncover what's really important to you, tackle any obstacles holding you back, and map out your best next step. Schedule your free 30-minute call today on careerbloomcoaching.com. And before you head out, be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. If today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration, please leave a review. It really helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend or on social media. Your support truly means the world. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time.